So now I'm just looking for my next meal, looking for a place to sleep, that sort of thing. When I arrived, I had a bit of trouble with the locals, nothing too serious. Eventually I found myself boarding up one place and crashing on a couch, just plain old exhausted. I checked my pack and found some protein bars. I ate them, hating the flavor, but knowing it was good for me. I nearly choked on the last bit as I looked over. I saw on the couch next to me a man who had blown his brains out. It had been a few days, but the smell was sickening. I'm just glad I kept down my bars. They're pretty hard to come by. I swallowed and looked again. He had done a pretty good job, since he wasn't getting back up. I looked over at his desktop and saw he had a computer. Lucky me, I mumbled. More useless information. I walked over and touched my fingertips against it, doing something I like to call a scan. I don't download anything, I just look at it. I saw some really different things. This guy was a retired member of AFOG while he was still around. He had not only done work on the Holocube, but he had done some other work as well. He focused his research on interdimensional travel. When I read this, my spirits went through the roof. A way out, I thought, not daring to speak as the undead might still be nearby. My mind, all of a sudden, started thinking about ways I could leave this place and just go somewhere where life was more enjoyable, easier. But my excitement died when I read it. It needed a whole terawatt to work. But my brain overrode my mind and commanded me to go grab the Holocube and search for a map of northern Miami. When it pulled up a map, it had pointed out the nearest and largest power plant. I was lucky I was close to one. As you see, we only had about 6 in the whole country, seeing as how they produced over 6 billion gigawatts per second. I tried not to get my hopes too high, as in the end it might not even work. But I had to try. I quickly put one hand over the USB drive and my other hand on the Holocube and began the download process. It only takes a few minutes, but in that time I am extremely vulnerable. I use all my energy transferring information from the computer to me, then exporting it to the Holocube. It took longer than I expected, but eventually I ended the download and removed my hand from the drive. I sat down, envisioning the design for the device to make the whole ordeal worthwhile. I look at its complications and groan. Back to the hardware store we go, Stinner. Something my dad used to say every time I asked for materials to build something from the internet. Thinking about him made me more eager to go and leave this horrible place behind. I looked through my pack and did an ammo check. What I found disturbed me. I had a severe lack of magazines, only 7 13-round clips and 2 grenades. I sighed, loaded my eagles, and headed out into the stale air of undead Miami. The hardware store proved profitable. It gave me anything and everything I needed. After hitting the shop, I decided to go check out the library for a layout of the plant. I walked in and a dead person looked me straight in the face. I reacted by instinct, dropping low, swinging my right leg under the zombie, making it fall to the floor. I then sprang back up, unholstering my left Desert Eagle, putting it against his forehead and pulling the trigger. Silent weapons make no sound, you know, so it just looks like someone pulled the plug on life. I stepped over the re-identified corpse and proceeded on my way to the main computer. I placed my hand on the drive and scanned it, got the blueprint I wanted, and walked out the front door. I then proceeded to a bike shop, hacked the electronic lock, and borrowed a bike. I then started to ride down to the power plant. Once I arrived, I looked around for about an hour trying to find the front door. The place was massive. You could easily fit a few smaller mansions in it. This was, however, the sole energy provider for about 13.5 states. Tennessee was also part of the Northeastern Atlantic Power Facility. The air was stale and frighteningly quiet, so I tried not to say anything I didn't have to. As I started through the building, I ran into a few pockets of trouble, and knowing I had low ammo, took them all out with my knife. I'd throw a rock over to another part of the room and take them out from behind. When a floor was clear, I'd keep moving up until I got to the 4th floor. The 3rd floor surprised me, seeing how it was empty. As I finished off the last of the 4th floor, I crept over to the MCC, main cable controls, and got down to business. I took the parts out of my pack and started to assemble the drive. When I was about half done, I took the liberty of installing about 14 bar and 7 chain locks on the stairway door, just in case. I retrieved some more advanced components from my pack and continued working. As I put the last screws in the device, I began to hear pounding and groaning from outside the door. Crap. I quickly took a large cable from the box labeled main export cable with my hands and jammed it into the side of the machine. Nothing. Assuming I must have forgotten to turn it on, I ran over to the MCC and flipped a large red switch. The facility hummed to life in an instant, turning a dark, gloomy plant into a bright, deadly one. Still, nothing from the machine. A lock, the first of many, broke off the door. I heard their numbers and started to realize survival might not be possible. I started to lose it. This is it. This is the end. I'm done. I cried for the first time in a while. full of anger at how childlike I had been for jumping at such an impossible opportunity. Filled with emotion, I gave a swift kick to the machine. Then it happened. A swirl of color had suspended in the air. Not 2D nor 3D, something else entirely. Two more locks broke off the door. I grabbed my pack and drove through the oval. Just as I stood back up, I heard the door burst open. I pulled a grenade out of my pack, pulled the pin, and threw it through the collar, and ducked behind the nearest object, a large boulder. I heard the explosion and with a loud boom, followed by the fizzle. I looked up, the portal was gone. Destroyed with the grenade was the machine as well. According to plan, of course. Couldn't have dead people going back and forth as they pleased. I relaxed against a rock and closed my eyes. I have never felt more exhausted or secure in my life. I must have fallen asleep because when I woke up it was dark. This wasn't a problem though, as staying in the shadows meant staying alive. I sprung up from my lap and became instantly aware of my surroundings. I was on the edge of a clearing in a massive forest. Now, normally I'd remember a map, find my location, and walk out of here. Piece of cake. Then I remembered this wasn't home. I didn't have a map. I sat down and decided that I'd climb a tree in the morning and make best for the possible location. Tonight, however, I made a shelter in a nearby cave. I sat down and considered my options. While thinking, I threw a rock into a strange mirror-like pool. The rock ran in, no splash whatsoever. Then 2 rocks popped out, almost hitting me in the forehead. It was out of sheer luck they missed me. I was too stunned to move. What the hell is this? I figure it was just a coincidence, but I wanted to test this theory. I threw another rock in, and just like before, 2 jumped out. I'm glad I did so, because I was throwing guns and mags in there until I couldn't throw anymore. Realizing the security I had, I've stored all my firearms and ammunition in a hole in the cave wall. I took out a piece of paper and taped in case of emergency over the hole. I then gathered some leaves from outside to put my head down onto, and then drifted off into a cold sleep. Hey guys, Gala here. Thanks for listening to Chapter 2 of Truly Alive by To Define Life. Again, special thanks to him, and Naya will be back next week with a bad fic.